If there was an idea or a dream or a goal, I would just put my mind to it, and then boom, it would happen. I got drafted top 4 rounds in the NFL, so I played 4 years in Arizona, played 4 years in Chicago, and that was my life for about 9 years, for almost a decade. NFL, from team to team, $1 million contracts, multi-million dollar contracts. That was the life that I lived. I remember I just signed multi-year, multi-million dollar contract. I had finally made it in the eyes of myself and many of my peers. And literally months after signing that contract, our team trades for a guy to take my spot. And then weeks after that, I tear my pec. So I'm out for the season. And then weeks after the season ends, I get a call from the coach and the general manager telling me that they're releasing me. I just didn't know why, and I didn't know what was next. Well, 2020 was a crazy year for so many reasons. Early March, COVID happened.
A stay-at-home order imposed statewide. Non-essential businesses and workplaces closed.
There was societal unrest.
Protesters are starting to gather to demand that the governor lift coronavirus restrictions.
Not only was this uncertainty in our society with COVID, but then George Floyd was killed. I remember calling Donita and saying, hey, what do you need? What can we do? Because I was ready to do something. And she said, Sam, right now all they need is someone to sit and listen to them and to help them process, just like you're processing. She told me about how they had healing circles, these circles where you just sit down with community members and try to just have a conversation. And so I said, I'm in. And so we got together some athletes from all these different teams, and we just sat down with us, with some of the young people, with police officers, and we talked. After we listened, we decided to get on a bus and take this tour of the west side of Chicago, this neighborhood called Austin, and Azariah was on the bus as well.
For them, they needed to see why we needed help. They needed to see the economic disadvantages that we didn't know we had because we didn't grow up in communities that they did.
In that neighborhood, there's 2 grocery stores and 17 liquor stores in a half-mile radius. So it's called a food desert.
Austin's biggest need, and the thing that kept coming up for people like repeatedly as we talked through the circles, was that we just don't have fresh food.
I remember she got on the microphone that's on some of these buses, and she said,
for you, this may be a field trip, but for us, this is life and this is home.
That moment didn't leave us. We knew we had to do something. We had this idea of maybe purchasing one of the liquor stores that was right next to By the Hand and maybe turning it into a food mart, a place for healthy food. But we wanted the kids to lead it.
We made all the decisions, really, even from the uniforms that we wore. It was all us doing it.
They started coming up with names and which foods they would have there and all these different things. I got together with some of the athletes and said, hey, what if we could raise some of this money? And so they all said yes. So about 17 of us in total raised $500,000 and partnered with By the Hand. I think they finished the rest.
The idea of Austin Harvest is being a collective mix of ideas and yearnings and wants, and then it happened.
These teens purchased a former liquor store and transformed it into a local market.
The entire purpose of Austin Harvest is for the Austin community.
That's a great thing you're doing in the community. It's a different narrative, a different story that gets told about Chicago.
We're initiating change, and it's inspiring so many others to make that same change as well. So if they're viewing it as like, oh, a high schooler can do this, well, I can do it too.
More than purpose, I found joy. I found joy in being able to go and help be a part of the Austin Harvest story. It's bigger than football. It's bigger than status. It's bigger than followers. It's bigger than fame. It's bigger than fortune. And even what I'm doing now, as great as it may be, you work for ESPN and you're with all these shows. The cool thing about it is that under all of that, I get a chance to do what I love, which is go in the community and serve and do stuff with Azariah. And the point is to glorify God with my gifts. That's the whole point.
My hope for Austin is that people in the Austin community are actively making change and knowing that they can. That's the most powerful thing. Like, that's where you're gonna see me. You're gonna see me actively making change in people's lives who deserve it and who need it crucially.
Azariah inspires me. Without her, none of this would have happened. It couldn't have happened. So one person can be the change. And you may be the person leading the charge, or you may be the person picking up the call. But all it takes is one.